All right. Well, hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Jamie Reed. I'm the education specialist with the Oracle Applications and Technology Users Group. I'm excited to welcome you all to the Fusion Cloud ERP Week session, Streamlining e-invoicing and Global VAT Compliance with Vertex and Oracle. I'd like to thank Vertex for sponsoring Fusion Cloud ERP Week. I keep saying it in every session, but these sessions really could not happen without our sponsors. And we are so appreciative to you, not just for these weeks, but for the partnership we have with you year round. Um, I also want to let everyone know that you should mark your calendars for Sun 2025. That's happening next June 8th through the 11th in Orlando, Florida. We'll be at the Rosen Shingle Creek Resort. We encourage all of you to join us. We're going to have a great ERP track, which will feature many of this week's sponsors or speakers and sponsors, I'm sure, and much more. So don't miss out on that. A quick reminder for today's webinar, you will be on mute throughout the session. However, you are welcome to send questions at any time through the Q&A in the Zoom platform. If you're interested in receiving CPE credit, participation is required. To be eligible, you must be logged into the webinar for at least 50 minutes. Ask a question under your username through the Q&A area of Zoom and complete the session survey at the end of the webinar. We are recording the session. The recording as well as the slide deck will be available to Fusion Cloud ERP Week attendees and OATUG members in the knowledge base within 24 hours. And now I'd like to turn it over to our speakers, Patricia Rocha Jordan, Solution Marketing Manager with Vertex, and Stephen Johnston, Solution Marketing Manager with Vertex. Thank you so much. You guys can take it away.
Thank you very much, Jamie. And just to echo, we appreciate OATUG and all of that you do for us and all the members out there, and certainly appreciate all of you for joining us today. So, all right, with that, we're going to go forward. So, as Jamie mentioned, obviously, we do have Ascend coming up. So, please, don't forget to put that on your calendar. I know we're looking forward to seeing everybody there again this year. So. And as I mentioned, we are very proud to be a part of this this week and to be a sponsor and supporter of OATUG. So thank you very much. So with that, I'm going to take a moment to introduce myself and certainly allow Patricia to do the same. My name is Steve Johnston. I'm part of the solutions marketing team here at Vertex. My focus is on Oracle applications and data from both a tax compliance standpoint, tax determination. So I cover our ecosystem, and my background is very much in technology. Patricia, if you want to take a moment to introduce yourself.
Sure, thank you, Steve. I'm Patricia Rocha Jordan. I'm also solutions marketing at Vertex, and my area of focus is e-invoicing VAT compliance, which is very much aligned with my experience. I used to be a tax manager and implementer of ERP here in Europe. I'm based in London. So hopefully what you're hearing today makes sense on the invoicing VAT area.
Okay. So I'm going to take a moment just to share our agenda for today. So we're going to talk a little bit about what VAT compliance is and e-invoicing, all the changes that have happened recently, even as recent as yesterday. Talk a little bit about the solutions and best practices that you can leverage to address those with your Oracle applications, and then give you a little bit of background on how we work together with OATUG, with Oracle, and then we'll wrap up with some key takeaways and best practices that you can leverage to try and build your strategy and really try to stay ahead of all the VAT compliance and e-invoicing requirements that are coming in the near future. So with that, we'll jump right in and start with our overview of VAT compliance and e-invoicing. And Patricia, let's start by talking about what VAT compliance, let's talk a little bit about what we mean by VAT compliance and specifically, the reporting obligations that come with that. When we talk about VAT compliance and the invoicing, it certainly brings certain visuals and ideas to mind, but can you help us kind of separate some fact from fiction?
Sure, and it's changing every day. So if companies in traditional time, they were used to do the file returns at the end of the period, this will be their usually VAT returns or GST returns. And they will wait for the period to close, they wait for accounting to close. And at the end of the period, the month, the quarter, and the year, they will file the VAT return with the tax authorities. Is now very much changing. Tax authorities want data quicker. They want more transparency. So they're implementing something called as continuous transaction controls. And this includes some new initiatives, as for example, e-invoicing, as you probably heard about e-invoicing. And e-invoicing is a way of exchanging your invoice data electronically. So there's no longer need the paper or the PDF to share the invoice from your buyers to sellers. Everything is done electronically within the software, and is shared from buyers to sellers and tax authorities. There is a predefined format as well. There is some fields that each country requires, but pretty much are trying to unify between the different jurisdictions to be the same fields. So e-invoicing is a real-time reporting request from tax authorities. So data is shared as you buy and sell. So this is completely different from what I said 20 seconds ago when I said traditionally companies will file the returns at the end of the period. So now we're seeing live, the moment you're selling and buying, your invoice is part of something called e-invoice. So your invoice is shared automatically as you buy and sell. We also seeing something called, oh, sorry, Steve, you're going to say something?
No, I was just going to say, so for a lot of folks in the audience, this may be brand new and you may be wondering how this aligns, especially if your primary operations are here in the US. But, Patricia, it really is a completely different scenario from a compliance standpoint that folks are used to with sales tax and consumer use.
Exactly. Even in Europe, there was already some attempts in the past with something called near real-time reporting, which we're also seeing that is something that is taking part or being used by some tax authorities. And near real-time reporting is a real-time reporting with a 4 or 5 days lag. So, for example, Spain SII is that mandate. So when you invoice, you have up to 4 days to tell the tax authorities that you've made that purchase or that sale. So there is different timelines and everything is happening very, very quickly. We go from this real-time reporting with e-invoicing, near real-time reporting, periodic filing. Also, we're seeing a change or an e-audit, where tax authorities are requiring more information on a quicker time frame. So they're no longer waiting for a longer audit purpose that we all used to in the past. They want data available to them very, very quick. So everything is changing. Real-time reporting now, near real-time reporting within a 4 or 5 days time space, and then your final return at the end of the period.
Well, I already saw somebody in the chat talk about the fact that they have e-invoicing requirements in over 20 countries, not just in Europe, but in Asia, Africa, Latin America. So while we're talking about this, we will talk a little bit about the emerging requirements in Europe, and I'll ask about that momentarily. But I think that's an important thing to keep in mind is that e-invoicing and VAT compliance, because VAT is a global concept, it's not just a European concept, really is been around for quite a while. I think it's really just, and Patricia, correct me if I'm wrong, it's really just more recently that you've seen as much focus around it, given the volume and veracity of changes and the mandates that are coming from the EU and European member states.
That is correct. Spot on, Steve. This is not new. Some other countries, for example, where I'm from in Portugal, there already something called SAFTI, which is something as more near real-time reporting. So the tax authorities are testing the waters to understand how each company and each company will respond. But it's nothing new. It is going to come more in the future for sure. And the big driver is the money. So in 2020, the European Union estimated 100 billion of euros were missed due to tax evasion. So there is a big financial target behind all these mandates. Obviously, there is the fact of transparency, increasing automation, increasing efficiency. But now that tax authorities see how much data they can get, how much money they can collect that was missed, I'm for sure this is something they're going to continue using as an excuse for creating more mandates and expanding even the type of transactions that are in scope.
And Patricia, I mean, as you touched on here, there's certainly an economic driver for governments as well, but there's also a separate economic driver in terms of helping to spur business and improve the support for more efficient business practices in Europe
correct.
as well, correct?
Exactly. And I still remember from my times when I used to issue invoices in paper and how long that will take. Then we moved slightly to PDF and things got quicker with OCR tools and other digitalization tools. And now e-invoicing. And as I mentioned, everything is shared electronically. So we'll take seconds from the moment that I hit the button from the ERP and that will come from Oracle back to my Vertex invoicing on a solution you have, to the moment I issue to the tax authorities and my seller. We talk about seconds. Even the ERP, the teams in the procurement have not even got the memo to say they have to ship something. I'm already saying to the seller, you have to pay me this. Sorry, the buyer, you have to pay me this. So everything is creating more efficiency, less errors, less manual intervention. Doesn't mean that we need less people, because we can use those tax managers for doing more added value tasks. So it's not reduction of staff by all means. It's actually use them for forecasting, for planning, thinking about how to work with finance. Is using resources smarter. But the level of intel we get from the invoicing, we're getting better cash flow information. We're paying quicker. We're receiving quicker. The finance team are also appreciating, oh, this is fantastic for us. We're getting a level of intel and cash in our pocket that we didn't have before. So everyone is very much interested to see, what does it mean for me from different other departments?
But as you can see here, and as Patricia alluded to, I think you have a lot of positives that can come with it, but I know the apprehension for a lot of folks, especially some of those that are listening here, is how do I really get my arms around all of this? How do I prepare and build a strategy to address this when there are all these individual mandates that all have their own unique requirements and all the complexity that brings with it?
Exactly. And maybe before we start talking about the complexities, I want to paint a picture of Europe, because it's a good example how complex this is. In Europe, for many years, they're trying to approve something called VAT on digital age, VIDA. And fantastic news, as Stephen mentioned, there was something happened yesterday. We got the approval from VIDA yesterday. So all the 27 member states said, yes, we want to go ahead. It was a historical moment. I know you had in US your elections, we had our elections in terms of VIDA. And VIDA is not just invoicing. Invoice is one of the branches, one of the pillars of VIDA, but it's really important because 27 members said, yes, we want to go ahead with a united standard invoicing approach. Now, this is going to be really interesting because each country, in the meantime, they didn't wait around and they start creating their own mandates. Romania is already live. Germany is going to start with accounts payable from 2025. UK on the autumn budget said, you know what, let's think about doing some consultation from spring 2025. So each country, there is the umbrella of VIDA, but each country is basically going down direction. So I want to collect money that I might be missing. So there is a lot of challenges from a tax perspective, from a tax manager, just to be able to keep up with this. It's not, I'm going to think about my own country now, because VIDA, and depending where you're operating, will impact your housekeeping, your tax rules.
So for a lot of folks that have kind of been waiting to see what was going to happen, it's really come to pass where it's not a matter of if or when you're going to be impacted by potentially e-invoicing, but especially if you're a multinational company or doing business in multiple countries, you're going to be impacted now, right?
For sure. So we can't think of this as just a European problem. For example, LATAM, early 2020s, they started, 2010s, they started implementing e-invoicing much earlier. So they were the pioneers, and obviously now it's stretching for the rest of the world for the reasons we mentioned. Is more transparency, is more money for the governments, is automation, is also from a perspective environmental. So we're helping the reduce of this year CO2 emissions, less paper. So there's a lot of good reasons for invoicing, and those good reasons are being echo globally. So each country, more and more countries are saying, I really like this idea. There's a lot of advantages. So they are pushing. So there is now an idea that this is not just in some countries, not regional mandates, is stretching globally. And if a country that might today not be thinking about this, very likely they will see the gains and will think, oh, okay, I think I'm going to have this idea. Also, we have to think that more and more companies operate globally. So if you have a cross-border trade company, and even if you're based in one country, the moment you operate, for example, Germany, so Germany will start AP in 2025, as I mentioned. If you need to do business in Germany from January, you will need to have a solution support in invoicing, even if you're quite remotely far from Germany, but the moment you are operating there, you are compliant to do e-invoicing.
Mm-hmm. And Patricia, I was just going to say, I think the important piece of this, as you mentioned, is it's knowing when the B2G, B2B, and B2C requirements are in place, and for just to make sure it's clear, business to government transactions. So if you're operating and selling to governments, there are already requirements around that. Business to business transactions versus the business to consumer, and those are all going to be staged differently. But honestly, the preparation for these is not all that different between the three, correct?
That's true. That's true. And I think in the future, if we talk about this, we won't even distinguish the transactions. Everything is going to be in scope. If in the past we saw that some countries starting with B2G to do the dry run to understand is the organizations, is the tax authorities ready to go ahead with something so different, they understood, okay, we are ready. And then they start deploying business to business. And now we're also seeing business to consumer. So some countries where there is some distress or there is some areas where potentially be tax evasion, we're seeing that more and more business to consumer is being applied. So we talk about all types of transaction can be in scope. And I'm sure in the future, we're talking about everything is in scope.
And Patricia, I think the key here is being able to get ahead of this and think ahead, right? I think right now a lot of people are who've been impacted by mandates have really been taking a country by country approach. But going forward with the scale of all of the mandates that are going to come on live and all the requirements, it makes sense to really take a more global approach and strategy as you're thinking about how to support this and how to be compliant, right?
That is the only way. The firefighting or Germany, I need to find something for Germany. I need to find something for that firefighter band-aid. I don't think is the right approach. You need to think about from an agile, from a scalable, from a holistic perspective. Think about a solution that includes the countries where you operate. As someone mentioned, already have 20. So think about this. It's going to grow. In 2-3 months, you have a list of 2, can be 10, can be 20. So think about from a global perspective, a solution that supports those countries, also support other areas as VAT compliance. As you mentioned, Steve, in the beginning, e-invoicing is just a small part of VAT compliance. You still have to file your return. So you need a solution that includes invoicing, VAT compliance, a good connection to other. I know we're going to talk about solutions in the future in a moment, but a solution that is connected to the ERP. So there is a lot of things you have to think about, but the key part is think it globally, not as just regional problem.
So let's move forward and talk a little bit about how you can take an approach to build out your strategy and implement solutions for this. So I think what we typically talk to our customers about, and really recommend, and this is validated when you talk to Oracle, when you talk to the analysts, is really trying to look at a single platform and solution for global VAT compliance. And in this case, certainly making sure that you have something that will integrate seamlessly with your Oracle applications and data. I know we've been talking about reporting, but Patricia, can you talk a little bit about the importance of also making sure that you're getting tax right on the front end, at checkout, to start this, and how that kind of feeds into supporting all your other compliance requirements?
And this is a conversation that we see more and more happening in Europe. I think in other parts of the world where tax is already per nature a bit more complex, a tax determination, tax calculation is something that is not as something's already a given. Whereas in Europe, we see a big rise on this data governance, end-to-end data quality. So it's important that when you file your return, you don't realize, oh, there's a big mistake here because you've been using the wrong tax rate for all your transactions. And then to change that is going to be painful because you have to change all your invoices. Think about if you're going backward from the moment you file your return, it's wrong. You use the wrong tax code. You have to change your invoices. You have to change your real-time reporting and near real-time reporting. So it's a massive cascade effect because you use a wrong tax code at the start. So your end-to-end journey needs to have the right data. There's no longer the time that you can have 30 days to change a tax return. Things have to be quality since the moment you put that data back from the ERP or even within the ERP. So it's really important that your tax calculation, your periodic transactions, your real-time transactions, and near real-time transactions have the right data from the start.
So I think that brings us back to a conversation that I think a lot of folks here are familiar with is having proper data governance. And in this case, tax compliance data governance from the beginning of the process all the way through. That really is becoming more and more important, isn't it?
It's paramount. It's paramount. The time to change, make adjustments, it's no longer happening. Things have to happen real time. So your tax classification, your tax determination needs to be accurate. And also another point to add is the e-invoicing. I look about in point of e-invoicing and VAT compliance, they are interlinked. So if you put the data wrong in one, you could hit the data wrong on the other one. So it's a catastrophic example of how things can go really wrong just by using one data that is incorrect. And that's why it's important to have an end-to-end, as we're showing, end-to-end solution that includes a seamless transaction of data flow. So there is no manual intervention, there is no errors. Everything is accurate since the moment you hit that button on the ERP.
And I think that's one of the things that we've heard from a lot of our Oracle customers is that when they're trying to address these issues, very often what they're running into are challenges with having piecemeal solutions that don't necessarily integrate, and it creates a scenario where you still have a lot more manual intervention that you need to take.
Exactly. You need that seamless integration. And on top of it, well, that seamless integration, you also need to be up to speed with all the changes. And you need to have a company that needs to be able to support all those changes and what's happening in the world. We talk about Vita, we talk about LATAM. So Steve, from your experience at Vertex, and how does a company need to keep up with those changes?
Well, so, I think the key thing that we advise customers as they're looking at this is we know that from an Oracle perspective, you have base level capabilities that exist the business suite that exist within Cloud ERP. So regardless of where you are in your application and cloud journey with Oracle, you have certain level of capabilities around e-invoicing support and reporting support. But Oracle has made it very clear that they've built out their partnerships with a number of vendors to give their customers options to be able to meet their obligations in a way that makes sense for them. And as you mentioned, the really key piece here is, as you're evaluating how you want to address this, identifying the right partner or partners who can help and really understand what's happening from a tax compliance standpoint. I think at Vertex, our approach is we have a centralized team that is just focused on this and nothing else. All they do is monitor the mandates, the changes in rates and regulations to make sure that, our solutions and our customers always have exactly what they need to ensure their compliance, regardless of how, when, and where they are operating. And so, that's a key thing is you're evaluating vendors, as you're evaluating your strategy, make sure that you have a trusted advisor and partner who you can work with that brings that depth and breadth of experience. And, at the Vertex side, we have a chief tax office and folks in our content office that have decades of experience in this. And so not only in their roles now, but also actually practicing. So they were where all of you are, trying to understand how to address these needs. And they've seen how these regulations, rates, and requirements have evolved over time. So not only do they understand where we've been and kind of why things are the way they are, but they understand kind of where things are going. And so they understand your scenarios that you're in, and how you need to transition from the processes and best practices you've leveraged up till now to the ones that are going to help you to be more efficient going forward.
Thank you, Steve. Now, if we go in more detail to the solution and how our partnership, a solution developed with Oracle, can you talk us about more detail?
Certainly. So from a Vertex perspective, what we've built is an end-to-end VAT compliance platform that integrates with Oracle applications data, so that you have that seamless flow of information, whether it's on the front end from a tax determination perspective with a global tax engine that can seamlessly integrate with your Oracle applications, whether it's Cloud ERP or eBusiness Suite. And then in addition, supporting solutions that integrate seamlessly to ensure that flow throughout that compliance process. So from the first transaction on the front end, right, from the minute you put something in the cart, through the transactions, all the way through all of your reporting, everything you need to one, validate during the transaction whether or not you have customers that are exempt, and then at the same time making sure that once you're able to assess tax accurately, you can report on that and prepare for your filings and remittance. And I think the other piece here is, and we touched on it before, an important thing to note is when we talk about e-invoicing from a VAT compliance standpoint, there is e-invoicing, but there is also digital invoicing regulations for human readable invoices. And we know that folks are still exchanging invoices in some cases both ways. So having a solution that meets a lot of the localization requirements there really becomes important. And so from a Vertex perspective, what we've done is partnered with Oracle to make sure that one, our solutions will provide you with that kind of end-to-end VAT compliance support that you need, that they will integrate seamlessly, and that our solutions, because of the relationship we have, will perform and meet all of your expectations from a scalability, flexibility, and security perspective.
Perfect, thank you. Should we take our audience to a trip to the e-invoicing journey?
Yeah. Absolutely. So Patricia, I think as we look at this slide, I think we've talked about VAT compliance and e-invoicing from a high level, but I think an important thing to talk about here is, this is something that not only impacts, organizations from an accounts receivable standpoint, but also from an accounts payable standpoint. As you kind of take us through this VAT compliance journey, can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Will do. So I'll do both from AP and AR. And I will start with the AR. So you get let's think about this journey. You have your information. So you just sold something. You had information from Oracle. It will it'll feed into Vertex invoicing. It can go through different areas, can go through a connector, an SFTP or API. So the data will flow from Oracle into Vertex invoicing, where there is a fantastic tool that we have that will transform that data into something called VRBL, which is a way of confirming that all the data matches the requirements for each mandate. So assuming, for example, you are from Romania, it will read the data you sent from Oracle, said, oh, okay, this is the data that is required. They'll say, yeah, match, oh, we're missing something. And they will throw an error to say, oh, don't forget you're missing, for example, the vendor name. So it validates data for you. Once the data is confirmed for that e-invoice, it will create the e-invoice on the right format and then submits it to the right tax authorities or PEPL. I know we have not mentioned PEPL before, but PEPL is an authorized network used by many providers, many tax authorities to be able to receive the e-invoicing data. So it's a certified way of exchanging e-invoicing as other types of data with tax authorities or with other parties. So you've submitted your e-invoice. It goes to PEPL. For example, PEPL sends to remaining tax authorities. They review it, fine, and then it goes to the buyer. So this is a perfect AR way. It's everything centralized. There is not a lot of human manual intervention. Everything is done within Vertex invoicing, comes from Oracle directly. It's a nice flow to the tax authorities. Then once comes tax authorities and the buyer, we get the document back so we can archive, because many countries require up to 15 years that documentation, and all the artifacts are archived for 15 years. It stays on Vertex invoicing, so we can archive it, and it goes back to the ERP, goes back to Oracle, so they can go to procurement, to payment, and so on. So everything is in the same place, control environment, and secure. This is from. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Now, from AP perspective, obviously the only role that we have is to receive the invoice. So you receive the invoice either through PEPL or directly from the seller, and then you receive the invoice. It gets stored on Vertex invoicing for archiving as well, and then all that data is then sent to the Oracle, sent to the ERP, so then it can be the next steps from a P&AR perspective. So again, everything, the flow is perfectly centralized, stored, and secure.
And so as you think about the solutions involved here, especially when you talk about accounts payable, that's where you may not only have for data and artifacts coming from your Oracle applications, but depending on whether you have multiple ERPs or you have another procurement solution, you may also need to be able to integrate with multiple solutions on both ends to be able to accommodate, right?
Exactly. And that's the beauty of the software. It can receive data from many vendors, many ERPs, e-commerce solutions. So everything can be from different source systems, and it gets centralized on our platform. And it gets centralized not only for e-invoicing, but also we can help with the VAT compliance. Because within the same platform, you can have your e-invoicing and you can have your VAT compliance. And VAT compliance is basically to submit your VAT returns. And what happens, I don't know if you remember from the beginning, we're talking about how it's important that e-invoicing and VAT compliance data aligns. And one of the key features we have on VAT compliance solution is a reconciliation. So when you're submitting your VAT return, it will confirm that all the e-invoices register on your VAT return match the same that you submitted via invoicing, and it can tell, oh, don't forget you're missing 3 or 4, it not been attached. So it's a quick way to make sure that your return is always accurate and everything is in the same platform.
I think that's really key, is that having that separate integration. And I know we had a question about is our platform and our approach really global? And, the answer to that is yes. I think that's really the key, is being able to avoid having point solutions by country and region, and being able to take a global approach in both your processes and the solutions using to support those. And having that single integrated platform. And I think, as you mentioned there, it's that importance of having, your VAT compliance solution and your e-invoicing truly integrated, so that it becomes a very seamless process to support, right? I think, Patricia, the only other question I have that I would throw out here, and certainly before I ask, I'll just throw out to folks in the audience, if you have questions, please feel free to put those in the chat. You can ask those at any time. As we go through we'll try and answer those, but for the most part, we'll try and wait until the end to take most of those. And I know we've had a number of questions that have already come in, so we thank you for those. But Patricia, just to jump back in here, from your perspective, what is the biggest challenge for those organizations, as we talked about, who may have already been dealing with how to manage this? For Latin America, where there are requirements already, for Asia Pacific and Middle East and Africa, and now with these new European mandates.
Oh, I can only choose one. That's gonna be hard. I think the first thing they have to do is have to think about understand the country roadmap and the country food coverage. So what jurisdictions are part of that company? Understanding the solutions they have cover all those, and if not, really think about from a holistic perspective. Don't go and, okay, I'm missing a country, let me find a patch for this country. No, think about, I need a global solution. And when you think about global solution, don't think just from an e-invoicing perspective. Think about from a VAT perspective as well, from a compliance perspective, and think about also about the connection with the ERPs. So this is a great time for investment on technology, investment on training as well, because the staff need to be trained as well. It's a great time to reflect on the needs of the company. Reflect on what is the future for the company, and trying to get away from that firefighting, trying to find one company or one software per jurisdiction, because that is not sustainable, it's not scalable, it's not agile. So it's really understand the company's IT and finance and tax, because this is not just a tax problem, this is a finance problem, this is a tax IT problem. Think about what is a strategy from the company from all those areas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Do
absolutely.
you have any other thing you can think? I know the list is long, but anything that pop in your head right now?
Oh, there's more, but I think we've got some other slides to share here. So I'll say I don't want to get too far ahead. Perfect. So, I think as we've talked about this, it's really important to understand, especially as Oracle customers, as user of Oracle applications, once again, how to evaluate which solutions and partners that you want to work with. And, I think from the Vertex perspective, really what we've done, and for those who've worked with us already, you're probably well aware of this, but, we work very closely with Oracle, and our partnership is such, and we've been partners for just around 30 years. And that means we've not only know the applications and data that you have today, but we know about a lot of the other systems that you may have, the other instances, how that has progressed for you. And we work closely with Oracle, so we know where they're going. So we can anticipate from a solution and technology perspective, what we need to create. And our master development agreement allows us to get access to releases before you even see them, so that we can make sure that when you're ready, we're ready. And what we do is we work with companies globally of all sizes, all industries and types. And our focus is from a technology standpoint as well as a tax and compliance standpoint to really address that complexity, and to really try to make things as easy and seamless as possible in terms of your approach to managing global tax compliance from a VAT perspective, along with your sales and use tax, but also from a technology standpoint. And I think that's really the key here is making sure you work with vendors that understand your data and your environments and have the capabilities to really support you, regardless of where you are in your journey from an application, from a cloud perspective. And, we talked about this before, but I think the Vertex approach to this is, providing you with end-to-end solutions. And we understand that not every organization is going to need all of these things, right? You're in different places, you're operating in different ways and have different models. Our goal is to make sure that regardless of how, when, and where you transact, regardless of what your compliance obligations are, that we are providing with the solutions you need when you need them. And I think as Patricia and I were talking about just moments ago, the key here for us is being able to set you up so that you can future-proof your business. For those of you in the audience who've been dealing with these obligations and challenges for many years, as we alluded to before, the challenges in North America with sales and use tax are pretty unique, and they've evolved over time. And the recent passage of VITA and the new requirements that it brings and will bring versus where we are now, those are going to continue to evolve and change. So that means you need to be able to plan for and be able to build in flexibility and scale to be able to not only be able to be agile and deal with these changes as they come in, but also have that scale, because the volume of invoices that you're going to have to process, the volume of reporting, the volume of data that you're going to have to process and retain and be able to reproduce in many formats. And I think about, Patricia, scenarios like marketplaces and e-commerce vendors, where they may be sourcing from multiple countries and shipping to multiple countries, and then thinking about the fact that you might have to invoice the same transaction multiple ways for multiple jurisdictions, right? The complexity of this just gets really crazy. And so our focus is trying to give you these components that fit into a single platform and make it as easy as possible for you to really address them, regardless of where you are, from a business growth perspective, from a technology perspective, and really try and make it as easy for you as we can. And, I think the other thing we talk about, and, Patricia, when we talk about VAT compliance, because this is so new and changing so frequently, I think that the other thing that we definitely, recommend folks is that you work with a partner or vendor that is able to provide you with the service and the consulting that you need to be able to deal with this, because it is new. And we understand that for a lot of you, your day job is not, managing all of these requirements, right? You want to stay on top of it, but you need folks who are experts who can help you before you implement and then after you implement, to make sure that you've addressed things, that everything is flowing the way it should through your systems, everything's integrated properly. And there's a lot of things there. I think from a Vertex perspective, what we look at is we provide dedicated service and support, but we also have an ecosystem of alliance partners who are fantastically knowledgeable. And so together, we're trying to provide you with the depth and breadth of service and support. So regardless of whether you need it today, or you're going to need it later, to deal with these requirements, we're trying to make sure that you're never left in a situation where you're kind of on your own, right? We're all part of the same community. We want to make sure that you're as successful as possible. And, I think that's a real key. So as you're evaluating vendors, I think it's really important to understand what their service and support capabilities are, and what their depth and breadth of knowledge with Oracle applications and data is. Do they have integrations? Do they have certified experts who can work with you? And I think that's really, really key. So, I think from a Vertex standpoint, what we feel makes us a bit unique is really, what we talked about in terms of the depth and breadth of our experience. And we're really proud of the fact that we've been recognized by Oracle for that, not only for our innovation in terms of the way we continue to evolve our solutions, but also our approach to service and support. And so we were really proud this year to be recognized with 2 Oracle Partner Awards, as Oracle North American ISV Cloud Tech Partner of the Year for Innovation, and Best in Class Partner for Innovation as well. So these are things that we're really proud of. And, honestly, we look at this and we like to thank all of you who work with us, those of you who are partners, who are customers, who really make that possible. And for those of you we haven't worked with, we certainly look forward to the opportunity to be able to share that expertise and kind of prove ourselves to you as well. So we've talked quite a bit here for a while. I want to stop here and just remind you that if you have questions, we're going to get to those in just a moment. So feel free to put those in the chat. But Patricia, as we've talked through, we've covered quite a bit. If you could share your thoughts on kind of what the key takeaways are that people should have and things they should be thinking about as they move forward.
Thank you, Steve. I think my key takeaways are e-invoicing is not a matter of if, but it's when. And I think we talked about throughout the presentation that it's coming. And if it's not ready, some on operation or country you operate. So don't think it's because it's not on your jurisdiction that is not going to come, because very likely you're going to operate in a country where there is a compliant, or secondly, the country you operate will implement the invoicing or something similar. So there is a lot of financial attraction from governments and from businesses to think about invoicing as the new hit in the market. So it is definitely coming. It's not if, it's when. It's going to come, and it's going to be very soon. The second one is, and I see this a lot in my previous experience in my previous life, where people thought, oh, the tax returns is a tax problem. It's not for the finance team, but e-invoicing and real-time reporting and near real-time reporting actually is impacting the way that businesses are operating. Because if you cannot e-invoice, you cannot invoice, you cannot buy, you cannot sell, you cannot ship. So the entire operation gets stuck because you cannot issue some data in electronic format. So it's a boardroom discussion now because it's impacting the company, but also so non-negatively. I don't want to feel like people feel scared about invoicing. Actually, as potential for the company, increase automation, increase efficiency. It brings more data, more insights of the operations from the company. So actually, it's a fantastic thing. Okay, there is some things to consider as technology, as a roadmap, but it's a future. Is a future, and we can't. And actually, someone has asked me a few days ago, can we do this in Excel? No. Invoicing is something that you cannot do in Excel. That even the most beautiful macros can help you to do this. You need a proper solution that is integrated with your ERP or ERPs, and also that you can submit tax authorities and PEPO. So there is this has to be a proper solution in place. What about you, Steve?
Well, I think for me, and we touched on this before, it's really taking a global view and looking to build out a single platform of, to be able to address this. As you mentioned, it's one thing to try and work this in Excel. I mean, you try and do that, you're going to end up tearing your hair out and you'll look like me before long. But I think the key here is also making sure from an IT perspective that you have a single solution that will integrate with your applications and allow you to cleanly, completely, and accurately manage the data from beginning to end and be able to ensure that you have clean and accurate data to fuel all of your transactions, to fuel all of your reporting, filing, invoicing, and such. It's really key. And building in flexibility and scale, as we talked about, because these requirements and mandates are going to change and evolve over time. The scale and volume of invoices that you're going to process as your business grows and as you expand into regions and countries is going to change. So building in some flexibility and scale for your business to make it easier is really key, so that you can future-proof your business and make sure that you don't have any disruption or anything that limits your growth. I think that's really, really, really key here. So, well, I can see we've got a number of questions here, Patricia, and I want to start off with one that came in early here. So, one of the questions I saw right off the bat was, regarding, e-invoicing. So what type of transactions are in scope for invoicing and real-time reporting?
So fast forward probably a year, I'm going to say all. But for now, so spoiler alert, in 1 year, I'm going to say all. For now, there is a mix. So each country is deciding what type of transactions they want to put in scope. Many started with B2G, so business to government. So for some, there was a case, for example, in UK, where transactions with the national health system needed to be done by e-invoicing. So it was a bit of a test drive. Then it started expanding to business to consumer, where we had companies above a certain threshold were required to do invoicing, again, a bit of a dry run. And then it starts scaling down the turnover to be mandatory to all business to business. And also we're seeing business to consumer. So for now, it's very difficult to manage because each country have their own transactions in scope. But the key point is that it's going to be all in the future. For now, it depends on the country.
Appreciate the answer. Another one that came in that's kind of interesting as well. Do the tax authorities receive e-invoices before or at the same time as the buyers?
Also another one that depends, and a very good questions, by the way, depends of the jurisdictions. So some jurisdictions, like Italy, for example, they will want to approve the invoice before it goes to the buyer. So the entire flow that I showed you before, it actually is not to tell the tax authorities, but is to ask them for approval. So the tax authorities will know before the buyer that they got the invoice. Others will be at the same time, actually. When you issue for both. They both receive for different purposes, but it depends on each jurisdiction. Again, just to manage that level of complexity, it's a full-time job.
So another one that came in, and this is a really interesting one. So what are your thoughts on when and if the U.S. will mandate e-invoicing?
So I'm not sure if yesterday's elections changed anything, and I'm completely no party here. This is a very tact response. I have no agenda on my response. So I'm honestly saying I don't know if anything happened yesterday is going to change the impact. I think at early 2024, late 2023, I would say maybe a long time. I was involved on something that if you work in direct tax, you might know something called Pillar 2, which was companies had to disclose a lot of information and to have to be able to create a minimum tax rate. So companies will not put the HQ in some tax havens and not to pay corporate tax. And US never didn't want to go ahead with that. So it was a bit strange. I thought maybe e-invoicing is going to follow the same approach. But the more I read, the more I see, I think it's going to happen very soon. I think the tax authorities in US are seeing how much money is being collected from that. There is already some machine from a tax authority in terms of solutions. So it's a case of if they put that in motion, I think very, very soon. And when it happens, I think it's going to be a big bang. I think companies need to be ready. So if you already have a solution that is invoicing and VAT compliance and sales and use tax in the future, I think you're prepared.
Well, there's certainly already some studies and some programs in place where they're looking at it as to a timeline of when it will happen and what form it would take in the U.S. I think that still, as you mentioned, remains to be seen as we go through election cycles and certainly see how things pan out now that Europe has kind of adopted their approach to VITA. But thank you for those who are answering this question. We have a couple more I want to throw out, and one of those questions was for the Vertex solutions, do they integrate with other Oracle products like BRM? And the answer is so our solutions are built so that we have pre-built integrations for most of your Oracle products, and then we also provide API support. So depending upon what product you have, the answer is yes. Can we integrate? Yes. Will you be able to use one of our connectors that's pre-built, or be able to work with either our team or one of our partners to help get that integrated for you? Yes. So regardless of where you are, which versions of the solutions you're using today, and kind of more importantly where you're going, we can work with you to help identify what makes the most sense in terms of how to integrate and how you can best optimize your AR and AP flows. So there's one other question that came in, and I thought this was an interesting one that ties in with that, and that is, as we're thinking about our other initiatives around migrating from on-premise with our Oracle applications into the cloud, should we be looking at implementing VAT compliance and e-invoicing solutions now, or is it better to wait until after you've gone through an upgrade or migration? And I'll actually take this one because I think the answer is you can do both, but honestly, you don't want to do anything that's going to, one, disrupt your business, and two, put you in a bad situation from a compliance standpoint. And whether you work with Vertex or other vendors, what you'll find is we have solutions that can integrate with you today, and then as your business evolves, as the mandates evolve, and as you progress with your journey to Oracle Cloud, or to from e-business suite to Cloud ERP or what have you, you have solutions that will grow with you and they'll allow you to kind of migrate and upgrade seamlessly. So you don't have to necessarily wait. And in a lot of cases, doing implementation of these solutions in part during your upgrade or migration, or if you're doing a new implementation, you'll get some economies of scale about when you include that now. So my answer to you is don't wait. Make sure that you're safeguarding your business from a compliance perspective, and address those needs today. But do so and evaluate the vendors and solutions you're using to make sure they're going to give you that flexibility and allow you to move, to grow and move with you as you migrate applications, platforms, what have you, and certainly as your business grows. So with that, I think that's all the questions that we've received. I want to thank everybody for taking time out to join us. I will say, if you want more information about Vertex Solutions, you can certainly visit our website at www.vertexinc.com, and I'll put that in the chat for everybody. And, if you'd like to see a demonstration of how these solutions work, you can certainly reach out to your Oracle or Vertex account managers, and they can help you. Or like I said, you can go to our website and request a personalized demo and consultation. With that, I'll stop there and just say thank you. And, we appreciate all of you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate, again, your sponsorship and your partnership. Great presentation, great content. To our attendees, thank you so much for being here. And that will conclude today's webinar. Again, have a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.